a hard time with this, though. Those carriers that service Long Point depend on that. It's a big chunk of money. In summertime, you're probably going to blow away 25% of their earnings by not allowing them to come in there. All right, so there's that to think about, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Oliver?
Mr. Mayor, the intent of this motion is only to waive a policy that is presently prohibiting staff from telling anybody about anybody that could provide a service. I would suspect the operators in our community would be even more livid with us if we don't do something after what we were told by the CAO. All I was intending to do with this little motion is to eliminate a bureaucratic roadblock that's prohibiting staff from being able to say, well, go to Johnny on the spot septic hauler because he's got a small truck and he can come in and still meet the road restriction. Same with the water hauler. Same with the fuel supplier. I'm not trying to do anything to inhibit business. What we're trying to do with this is to potentially help some property owners in a jam because they can't get water, they can't get rid of their sewage, or they can't get fuel for their boats or for the marina customers. That's all it was intended to do.
Any other discussion on the motion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? I'm sorry.
Reminded by Lee, and I think she gave me the impression it's important. If you don't mind, perhaps some further text in this motion that essentially allows staff to identify certain haulers that are either approved haulers that we have approved and have the authority to approve as council, and staff don't. So there may be circumstances where we need to delegate to public works staff appropriate haulers, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know whether that wording captures what she was concerned about.
Through the mayor to council, the concern is right now we have a very specific list of people that are permitted to discharge at our treatment facilities.
Yes.
And council has to approve every new sewage hauler. There is the potential that there may be some other smaller companies that don't typically do business here that are somewhat local to Norfolk that may have smaller vehicles that would be able to come in to assist in this situation, but then they would have to haul it back to wherever they could. If staff were delegated the authority, we could approve some of these other people potentially to come to our facility, so in fact they could just go to, say, somewhere like Port Rowan to discharge and not have to go back to a considerable drive. It may make it more advantageous for some of the homeowners down there. So on an interim basis, if we could have delegated authority to approve those and not have to come back to council, it would provide even more flexibility to deal with the difficult situation.
Councillor Oliver and Wells, I've added, and that staff be allowed to approve haulers to use the sewage facilities of the county without council approval. In other words, at their discretion. Councillor Black?
Another wrinkle. So if we do that, would staff be ensuring that the sewage is coming from Long Point with these new approved haulers and not someplace else?
Through the chairman to council, I don't think anybody can ever guarantee anything, but I don't believe it financially makes any sense for these haulers to come to our facility if they're not coming from the Long Point area. It's just not an economic number for them that makes any sense to do that. So I believe it'll be, generally speaking, self-regulating. And if we have the odd exception, then staff can certainly address that.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver?
Final point on this, and Mr. Mayor, going back to Councillor Haidt's concern, I just don't remember whether the clerk's wording for us, this does have a sunset clause in it. In other words, this policy, this motion is only in effect until the load restriction comes off the bridge. I mean, that's our intent, I'm sure. And if that wording isn't in there, it perhaps should be.
Through you, Mr. Chair. It said to publish, so it wasn't an ongoing action. It would be a one-time where staff would go ahead and make this information available public. So,
as long as you understand that it's only in effect until the load restrictions comes up.
Okay, you've heard the motion then. Can I call the question, ask those in favor? That's carried. Those opposed? That's carried. Just before we leave and go back to other business, I do want to, on behalf of council, thank our staff, all of our staff, senior staff and beyond, for their quick action in making sure, first of all, that this situation was made as safe as it possibly could be made last week. And the damage control was done very quickly. If there is any good news in this, there are no injuries or fatalities. And many of our staff worked a lot of hours in a short period of time to make this happen. And I want to say that I certainly recognize from emails and phone calls I get that there are some very upset people. There's also a number of people that have contacted me that want to be part of the solution, that have suggested things that they could assist each other. Even something as simple as, do we want to have a fireworks and bonfire ban this weekend on the point? These are residents suggesting that perhaps we should, thus a call from me to the fire chief and things like that. You know, we can sit and point blame. We can try to justify that what happened shouldn't have happened. It's done and over. We have a bridge that's partially crippled. Now we have to put our energy in getting this thing back to full capacity and both lanes open as quickly as possible. There isn't a worst weekend we could have had with a number of people returning for the first time to their cottage, and their tank is full and their cistern is empty. So staff certainly is well aware, and as this council is, of some of the hardships, but this will get resolved, and we hope everyone can assist in getting it there. So I do want to thank staff. Anything else, Lee? I think that's probably enough you've given us, but we're welcome back under other business for anything else you have.
Nothing else this evening.
Thank you. Marlene, good to see you. Anything?
Thank you.
Nothing. And Mr. Cridland.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Councillor Brunton, please.
Well, thank your worship. On Thursday at the BIA meeting in Simcoe here, we had a deputation, or I call it a presentation by Pathways for People. Yep. And it was really interesting about biking in Norfolk County. And I've encouraged them to come and speak to council because I think it's very important that they understand how much biking is done in Norfolk County, and it's become very much a focal point in Ontario for that activity. But during the conversation, and I'm going to bring this up, and I'm not sure how to handle it, but I live on the 8th concession, and I do bike. And if some of you are aware, Councillor Oliver perhaps, and Mayor Luke, the 8th concession is a very popular road for biking. Yes. And they come in on Evergreen Hill Road, that's also very popular. Now we have, I call them bike lanes on both sides. The real problem is the stretch between the 8th and the Evergreen Hill Road. It's about 200 meters on Hillcrest. Very busy road. Steel trucks use that road all the time. And one of the things, and I did speak with these individuals at the BIA after, and they, if we could pave the shoulder on the east side of the Hillcrest for that 200 meters, it would be a lot safer for people biking. And again, it's very popular. I know they come down the 8th on a regular basis. They don't come to see me by any means, but they do frequent that road. And I don't know, Mr. Barry, are you familiar with the silver spokes, I believe they're called? Again, that's a very popular route for some reason, in and out. And so I'm not sure how to handle that, Your Worship, if I need to make some form of motion at some point to deal with that. But I've looked at the shoulder. It's quite wide, but it is fairly steep and drops off in that particular location. But I think it would be an excellent small issue to assist all the bikers that come to Norfolk County. So I'm looking for some advice. Would it be I guess I can't make a motion here right now, we've closed that off, but would that be the way to handle that? To look at it? Or-
Well, I'm not an expert on how to move
I
forward on
ask-
that. I'm wondering if we need to turn this, give direction to staff to look into it. I'm wondering why you wouldn't want bike path or lane on both ways, because they do go down Evergreen and turn left on, and then on up the 8th.
Yeah,
I don't know, I'm just saying
yeah.
that's.
I think, and it's only my observation, that shoulder on the east side is wider.
You're probably correct.
Yeah.
I know the shoulders are narrow on Hillcrest.
Could I ask Lee to look into that possibility? Is that in order?
Could I have a show of hands from council to have staff have a look at that little section of road for bike paths?
Yeah.
And bring something back to us?
Yeah.
You okay with that? Show of hands, please.
Thank you.
Lee, could you look into that, have your staff look into that?
No.
Thank you very much, Councilor Rowan. I'll go to Councilor Geisens next, please, for other business. Okay, Councilor Wells?
I have a question here for Ms. Robinson. This is not pick on Ms. Robinson's evening, but just so happens that that's a lot of issues directed at her attention. Lee, the county does a great deal of road work. And after the road work is done, we have to repair the boulevards, the side of the roads, and with topsoil and new topsoil. I have a situation in my ward where this is done, and the road work was done, and topsoil looked nice, the lawn was done, and the grass is growing. Unfortunately, the grass seems to grow a different color, a lot of dandelions in that grass. So the question was asked to me, do we have any policy that says if the topsoil that has been replaced is full of contaminated issues such as dandelions, do we have a right to ask the developer to come and dig it up and put new topsoil down? That's the question I was asked, and I didn't know the answer.
Through the mayor to council. To be clear, dandelions are not deemed to be contaminated soil. Although not desirable to some people, they are not listed on the list of contaminants. So there is the topsoil that is placed must conform with certain standards. There is no way to measure the amount of dandelions in topsoil. Therefore, the topsoil that's placed does comply with everything. And unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do to assist with that. And as you are likely aware, with all of the current legislation surrounding pesticides, we do not have the ability to spray for dandelions either.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. I'll deliver that message, just in case the person is not watching this evening. My second one is to Mr. Baird. I have a question today from a constituent asking what she would do to try to get a road sign to honor John Axford, who was a resident of Port Dover. His family still lives there, and of course he's a famous baseball player. And we've had other people recognized, such as Red Kelly. How would that person go about getting a potential road sign to honor John Axford?
Through the mayor, I guess whether it's a road sign that would entail, just to be clear, we were talking about a sign that would go up, something like Lucas Wilson.
Yes.
Or Austin Pastor, NFL in Langton area. They would simply write a letter. I would suggest it go to Mr. Grosel, who can receive that as an official communication and add it to a council agenda, at which time a recommendation could come forward from council whether staff would investigate that. There's costs to develop the sign and have it installed, but they're nominal, but it would be at the discretion of this council.
Thank you very much for that. I will pass that message along. My last one, Mr. Mayor, is kind of a personal one. I hope nobody will be offended. I have been asked on several occasions, numerous occasions, lots of occasions, what do I intend to do now that I'll be soon retiring? And up until last week, I didn't know what I was going to do. But I'd like to publicly state that I now have, thanks to the Toronto Sun, I have discovered what I will be doing in my retirement. So let me explain to you what I will be doing. After reading this article, I see that the president, CEO of Toronto Hydro earns $3.2 million. I want you to know I'm not applying for that job because I don't feel qualified. However, I think I will be applying to get a position on the Hydro Board. Last year, the members of the Hydro Board earned $160,000. That was not enough money. They now earn, with their raise, $185,000. That's almost the same as we earn. And I just want to now quote Mr. Ford. That's why I brought that in. So what do I have to do to earn that $185,000? According to Mr. Ford. He says, according to Doug Ford, all you have to do is show up at what? 6 meetings? I could fit that into my schedule now that I'm retired. And maybe someday I could go on to be the board chair, where they earn $330,000. And if that is not an insult, what about this? One of the directors said, and what's even worse, is a statement from Hydro, from this director says that they are being underpaid, that many other directors earn more. So when I get my new position, come and see me, I'll buy you all a drink. While our ratepayers, of course, and the Hydro users keep paying big bucks for Hydro. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
New position. Hope you don't forget us. Councillor Oliver. Councillor Height, please.
Mayor Luke, I'm glad I haven't put my nomination papers in yet. I'm going to put them into Mr. Wells, the new board of director there, to be his personal driver. But, no, obviously I don't have too much personal or other business going on because my phone's been ringing off the hook, as you must know, because of the bridge. But I did want to mention something that you touched on earlier. Residents around, they've been calling, offering solutions. They had a lot of good points on how to resolve things and just different workarounds. And that's not only from our community, Mr. Mayor. I've received a call from some Bayham residents, and they're asking us if we want a submarine to help. So they asked me to ask you guys, so I'm here asking you, and we could just put it right there with the little structural bridge over it and drive over, and it could be a tourist thing too. So if staff want to put that on a staff report or something, we'll delete that, but thank you.
The SS Height. Councillor Columbus, please.
Well, I don't know if I can beat that one. I suppose they want to paint that submarine yellow. Mr. Mayor, I have something for Ms. Robinson. I know she's been busy with issues tonight, but just got this petition in my mailbox. I don't know who dropped it off, and maybe it's addressed to Norfolk County Public Works Department. It was made out May 1st, and it's with respect to road repair replacement on Marshall Avenue in Delhi. There's 54 names on it, and it just reads this way. The residents of Marshall Avenue in Delhi, along with others within the neighborhood, respectfully petition Norfolk County for the replacement or resurfacing of the road on Marshall Avenue from Delcrest Avenue East to Adams Avenue in the town of Delhi. And then there's a number of reasons why. There's 6 of them. And we are asking that the county consider temporary repairs and not in the form of hot or cold patching the suspect areas along the road, but to consider resurfacing the road. So last couple weeks you gave us a number of roads that are going to be resurfaced in this way. This one did not meet it, but for them to wait till 2026, as mentioned here, is too long. So did you get a copy of this petition to the office? I don't know.
Through the mayor to council, I cannot answer whether or not it's there. I have been here in Simcoe working on the bridge stuff, and I haven't been back to the Delhi office, but it may very well be there. If not, I will take a copy of it this evening.
I will pass this on to you then, and perhaps, I know 2026, it's a road that probably should have made the grade to be resurfaced this year, but there's a lot of other roads, so they just say they can't wait till 2026, which is 8 years away.
Through the mayor to council. Council will recall that a few weeks ago we talked about the road program that we'll be bringing forward for 2019. We're also redoing our roads need study, so we expect a significant change in the upcoming years with respect to our roads. and how they're all prioritized, et cetera. But we can certainly respond to the petition.
And Councillor Black.
Well, so I'll pull my list out. And I've had a petition for probably 10 years now for Potts Road in Simcoe. And I know that's one of the reasons why I've been talking about roads and why Lee, I think, is looking at a different way of dealing with it. So I'm hoping that some of these roads that are in terrible shape can be improved. And I will be going over to Marshall and Delhi and check it out. And I hope you go to see Potts Road, and maybe we can compare notes on one road and the other, see which one is the worst. Maybe a competition. Mayor Luke, question about, if you recall when Cedar Crossing, and you were at the chamber event, when those plans first materialized here at council, I asked the question about a crosswalk from Cedar Crossing Seniors Home to the sidewalk, which is on the south side of the road. And I figured that something would have to be done there. Nothing was included. And at this event that you were at and I was at, I had a gentleman ask me that question. And apparently, and I figured they would, they go down to the variety store or they use the sidewalk, but they have to cross Cedar Street and then go down the south side of Cedar Street to the next road and cross back over to get to the store, to get anywhere, really, because the sidewalk doesn't go all the way down to Queen Street. So that's a question through you, and we'll just load Lee right up with another one. So is that something that is being considered, or can it be considered?
Through the mayor to council, we can certainly include that in things for council for budget deliberations on going forward years, yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Well, just at the very least, just have a look at it from a safety perspective. And that facility, I'm amazed. I know I've been there a few times. It's a beautiful facility. Lots of things going on there. First time I went, there weren't too many residents in there. And the next time I went, there was a few more. But this last time, the dining room was practically full. I did ask, and he said, I think he said he's 77% full now, which kind of blew me away compared to not that long ago. So, you know, the sooner they're full, then they'll start that second phase. Another question through you to, and I think it might go to Chris, and maybe you'll have to take this information away, but I believe, Mayor Luke, you've got the same complaint of someone trying to put a driveway in, and they were told that they have to be 1.2 meters back from the property line. And I thought the 1.2 meters was back from the house, like the setback, and had nothing to do with the driveway, that a driveway could be on the property line. I've seen driveways abutting each other. So there seemed to be a staff problem with that interpretation. So I wondered if Chris could look into that. So you understand what I'm asking, I guess.
Through the mayor, I understand what you're saying. I'd have to know the exact property and what the zoning is. We'd be glad to look into that. If
Okay.
you could perhaps leave me the address?
Yeah,
Before you leave,
I'll give
and
you
we'll
the
look into
address
it.
after.
Great.
All right? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the confirming bylaw. Thank everybody for their input tonight. Just a reminder, next week is the 5th Tuesday, the 29th, so don't show up next Tuesday for council. Come on June the 5th for our CIC meeting. It's been moved by Columbus and seconded by Black, the bylaw 2018-54, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Norfolk County at this council meeting held on the 22nd day of May 2018, be passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and affixed with our corporate seal. Those in favor? Carried. We are adjourned this evening. Thank you. Well,